It started like any ordinary evening. She was sitting on her bed, scrolling through endless notifications, half bored and half distracted. The glow of the phone screen was the only light in her room. Nothing unusual, nothing exciting, until it happened. A new message appeared. The sender? Unknown. The words? Simple. Hi, I saw your profile. You seem interesting. At first, she almost ignored it. After all, strangers send messages all the time. But something about this one felt different. The tone was casual, yet oddly personal, like he knew exactly how to get her attention. She hesitated. Should she reply? Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. One small answer couldn't hurt, right? Finally, she typed back, "Hi, do I know you?" That was the beginning. The stranger responded instantly, as if waiting. His words flowed smoothly, filled with charm. He was polite, funny, engaging. Within minutes, she found herself laughing at his jokes, curious about his stories, and strangely comfortable. It felt like talking to someone she had known for years. But beneath the excitement was something else, an uneasiness she couldn't quite explain. Who was he, really? How had he found her? Why did he sound so perfect? Questions flickered through her mind, yet she silenced them. Loneliness has a way of making people overlook red flags. The chat stretched late into the night. Hours passed without her realizing. And by the time she finally set her phone aside, her heart was racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just opened a door she should have left closed. What she didn't know was that her life had already changed. That one message, that one reply, had set in motion a chain of events that would lead to fear, betrayal, and a twist she could never imagine. At first, their chats were light, short greetings, casual questions, the kind of small talk strangers usually share. But quickly, things began to change. He seemed to know exactly what to say, when to say it. His timing was perfect, his humor effortless, his compliments never too much, never too little. Night after night, their conversations stretched longer. What began as a few messages turned into hours of late-night texting. She would laugh at her phone screen until her cheeks hurt, wondering how someone she had never met could make her feel so alive. He remembered the smallest details, her favorite color, the book she was reading, even the exact words she used when she was tired. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her childhood memories. And every time she shared, he listened carefully, responding with empathy that felt disarming. Slowly, walls began to crumble. She confessed things she had never told anyone. The loneliness she carried, the regrets she buried, the insecurities she tried to hide. And he, in return, shared his own stories, tales of heartbreak, of chasing ambitions, of nights staring at the ceiling feeling empty. The bond deepened. In just a few weeks, this stranger was no longer just a stranger. He had become her secret companion, her comfort, her escape from reality. The phone was no longer a device. It was a lifeline, glowing every time his name appeared. Yet, beneath the laughter and confessions, a quiet unease lingered. It was too perfect, too smooth. Sometimes his stories didn't quite add up. Sometimes his replies were too fast, as if rehearsed. But she pushed those doubts aside. After all, people deserve trust, don't they? And when he finally typed those words, "I think we should meet," her heart skipped a beat. The screen lit up with possibility, excitement, and a danger she could not yet see. Their chats had become a daily ritual. Morning greetings, midnight confessions, jokes that made her laugh out loud in the quiet of her room. He wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was someone who filled the silence of her nights. And then it happened. One evening, after hours of playful conversation, his message arrived. "We've talked for so long. Don't you think it's time we met in person?" Her heart stopped for a moment. She stared at the glowing words on her screen. Meet? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. She typed, erased, retyped her reply. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to finally see the face behind the messages. Another part whispered caution. What if it's not safe? What if he isn't who he says he is? Sensing her hesitation, he responded quickly. Don't worry. I'll choose a quiet place. Somewhere safe, just us. You'll feel comfortable, I promise. His words were smooth, reassuring. Almost too reassuring. That night, she barely slept, torn between excitement and fear. In her mind, she imagined what it would be like, his smile in real life, his voice unfiltered by a screen, the possibility of something real beyond the chat. But she also imagined the risks. Countless stories flashed in her memory of people tricked by strangers online. The next morning, his message was waiting. The time, the place clear and specific. A small cafe outside the city center. Secluded. Private. She read it again and again, nerves twisting in her stomach. Still, against the warning bells ringing in her head, she typed back one word. Okay. Her finger trembled as she hit send. At that moment, she didn't know it, but that single word had sealed her fate. The decision was made. The meeting was set, and nothing would ever be the same again. The day of the meeting arrived. She spent hours getting ready, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Every few minutes, she asked herself the same question. Was this a mistake? Her hands trembled slightly as she fixed her hair, her mind racing between excitement and dread. By evening, she was standing outside the cafe he had chosen. The street was quieter than she expected. No buzzing crowd, no bright neon signs, just a dimly lit corner with shadows stretching across the walls. She took a deep breath and walked closer, her heart pounding so loud she could hear it. Then she saw him. At first glance, he smiled warmly, raising his hand in a casual wave. But as she studied his face, her stomach twisted. Something was wrong. His features didn't quite match the pictures he had sent. The jawline was different. His hair was shorter, darker, and those eyes, sharp, unblinking, too intense, were nothing like the friendly gaze she had imagined. She forced a smile, tried to mask her unease. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe nerves were making her paranoid. But as he stepped closer, the way he looked at her sent chills down her spine. It wasn't admiration. It was something else. Something darker. They exchanged awkward hellos. His voice was deeper than she expected, almost rehearsed. Every word carried a weight, as though he wasn't really speaking to her, but performing for some hidden audience. She noticed how he kept glancing around, scanning the street, as if making sure no one was watching. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, yet she stood frozen, caught between politeness and fear. 1,000 excuses formed in her mind, but none made it past her lips. The silence stretched. The night grew colder, and in that moment, she realized she might have walked straight into a trap. She stood there, every nerve in her body on edge. The smile on his face no longer looked friendly. It looked forced, almost unnatural. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. You know, I'm not exactly who you think I am. Her blood ran cold. The words echoed in her mind, replaying again and again. She tried to laugh it off, pretending it was some kind of bad joke, but his eyes told her otherwise. They were sharp, calculating, void of the warmth she once thought she saw in his messages. Slowly, the truth began to unravel. The stories he had told her, the family drama, the heartbreak, the dreams of a better future, none of it matched up. He slipped details without realizing, contradicting his own tales. And now, in person, it was all too clear. This wasn't the man she had been talking to. This was someone else. Someone who had carefully studied her, learned her weaknesses, mirrored her desires, and crafted a perfect mask just to pull her in. Her chest tightened as panic rose inside her. Every red flag she had ignored now blazed in her memory. The fast replies, the too perfect compliments, The subtle way he always redirected the conversation back to her fears and secrets. He hadn't been connecting with her. He had been collecting her. And then came the words that made her heart stop. I've known where you live for weeks. I've been waiting for this moment. She froze, unable to move, unable to breathe. It was no longer about a stranger she had met online. It was about a predator standing inches away who had been planning this meeting long before she agreed. Her world tilted. Fear consumed her. And in that instant, she realized she wasn't meeting a stranger. She was standing face to face with a lie made flesh. She stood there, every nerve in her body on edge. The smile on his face no longer looked friendly. It looked forced, almost unnatural. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. You know, I'm not exactly who you think I am. Her blood ran cold. The words echoed in her mind, replaying again and again. She tried to laugh it off, pretending it was some kind of bad joke, but his eyes told her otherwise. They were sharp, calculating, void of the warmth she once thought she saw in his messages. Slowly, the truth began to unravel. The stories he had told her, the family drama, the heartbreak, the dreams of a better future, none of it matched up. He slipped details without realizing, contradicting his own tales. And now, in person, it was all too clear. This wasn't the man she had been talking to. This was someone else. Someone who had carefully studied her, learned her weaknesses, mirrored her desires, and crafted a perfect mask just to pull her in. Her chest tightened as panic rose inside her. Every red flag she had ignored now blazed in her memory. The fast replies, the too perfect compliments, the subtle way he always redirected the conversation back to her fears and secrets. He hadn't been connecting with her. He had been collecting her. And then came the words that made her heart stop. I've known where you live for weeks. I've been waiting for this moment. She froze, unable to move, unable to breathe. It was no longer about a stranger she had met online. It was about a predator standing inches away who had been planning this meeting long before she agreed. Her world tilted. Fear consumed her. And in that instant, she realized she wasn't meeting a stranger. She was standing face to face with a lie made flesh. The air grew heavy, as though the night itself was holding its breath. She wanted to run, to scream, but her legs felt like stone. Every instinct inside her shouted, "Get away!" Yet fear kept her paralyzed. He stepped closer, invading her space, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. "Come with me. Just a short walk. Somewhere quieter. You'll be safe with me." The words were meant to sound reassuring, but they twisted like knives in her chest. Safe? Nothing about this felt safe. She could hear the blood pounding in her ears, her heart racing faster than it ever had before. Her phone buzzed faintly in her pocket, a tiny reminder of the world she had just left behind. If only she could reach it, call someone, send a message, but his gaze locked onto her like a predator cornering prey. Any sudden move, and she knew he'd notice. The street around them was silent. The cafe had closed. The few passers-by had disappeared into the night. It was just the two of them now, standing in a shadowed corner where no one would hear her if she cried for help. He tilted his head, almost impatient, like a hunter waiting for his catch to give in. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Her throat tightened. Words wouldn't come. She wanted to scream, but no sound escaped. She wanted to step back, but fear had chained her in place. Every second stretched longer, darker, heavier. It felt like the end, a nightmare unfolding in real life. For the first time, she truly believed she might not survive the night. And then, just as the shadows seemed to swallow her whole, a sound broke the silence. Footsteps, slow, steady approaching. Someone else was there. Her eyes darted toward the noise, a fragile spark of hope flickering inside her. Could it be his savior, or another danger waiting to strike? The sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing through the empty street. She turned her head slowly, desperate for any sign of help. Out of the shadows emerged a man, an ordinary passerby, holding his phone, glancing curiously at the tense scene unfolding before him. The predator's grip on her arm tightened for a moment, his jaw clenching. He glanced at the newcomer, his eyes narrowing, calculating. For the first time, his calm mask cracked. He hadn't planned for witnesses. The passerby paused. His gaze flicked from her terrified face to the stranger's cold stare. Something wasn't right, and he knew it. Clearing his throat, he spoke firmly, his voice cutting through the silence. "Is everything okay here?" The stranger's expression shifted instantly, his false charm snapping back into place. "Oh yes, she's just a little nervous. We're friends." But her eyes betrayed the truth. Wide, desperate, silently screaming for help. The passerby caught it. His posture stiffened, his hand tightening around his phone. "Funny," he said slowly, "because it doesn't look that way." The tension snapped like glass. The predator released her arm, his plan crumbling before his eyes. Rage flickered across his face, but with a final glare, he stepped back into the darkness. Within seconds, he was gone, swallowed by the night. Her knees weakened, and she nearly collapsed. The passerby rushed forward, steadying her. She couldn't speak, her throat raw with unshed screams, but her eyes filled with tears of relief. She was safe, for now, but as she walked away, escorted by her unexpected savior, a chilling realization struck her. This wasn't over. Somewhere out there, the predator was still watching, waiting, perhaps planning again. And she knew, deep down, her life would never feel the same. Because the stranger she met online wasn't finished with her yet.